Well, welcome back. Our goal tonight is to practice factoring trinomials. That try is going to tell me there are three pieces to our terms. Something in the form of ax squared plus bx plus c, where a, b, and c represent numbers. So in our first example, our goal is to write each of the following products in simplest ax squared plus bx plus c form. So let's take this first example. Now, you can multiply this in a multitude of different ways. So I'll show you a couple different ways, and you do what's good for you. The first one is that distributive method, where you're going to take the 3x times this whole quantity. So I'm going to say it's 3x times 5x plus 7. Then I have a plus 2 times this quantity, 5x plus 7. I'll clean it up, multiply. So I've got 15x squared plus 21x plus 10x plus 14. My x's go together. So 15x squared plus 31x plus 14. So let's make a note. That's one method. That's the distributive method that we talked about earlier in the year. Another method that you're probably familiar with is an acronym called FOIL, which stands for, and if you're not sure, write it down, first, outer, inner, and last. So let me now do the FOIL method. I'm going to take the first of each set of parentheses, so that's going to multiply and get me 15x squared. The outer would be the outermost, 3x and the 7 are on the outer, so that would get me a 21x. The innermost, the 2 and the 5, which would get me 10x. And then the last from each section, the 2 and the 7, which would get me 14. And then I'll combine my like terms, and I'm going to get 15x squared plus 31x plus 14. The third method would be the tabular method, and that's totally up to you. We have 3x plus 2 and 5x plus 7. So 3x plus 2 and the 5x plus 7. And that's where you multiply in the boxes. So it would be 15x squared plus 10x plus 21x plus 14. Put your like terms together. There's your 15x squared. These two make the 31x, and the 14 is here. So the best part about math is you don't have to memorize one way to do things. Do what works for you. So somehow you've got to be able to multiply these, whether it's with the distributive method, foiling, or back to the tabular. I'm going to FOIL. That's my method of choice. But again, you use what works for you. So pause it, pick your method, and try this next one. I would typically all write this on one line. I just ran out of room. So when I put my like terms together, I should get 20x squared minus 2x minus 6. Now again, whatever method you used, we should get the same answer. Alright, so we're kind of going the opposite direction. We just FOILed, and now we're going to undo our FOILing basically by factoring each of the following. Okay, so let's call it factoring each of the following trinomials. So in this case, I like to use the little acronym MAM. M-A-M. Okay, if you have any trouble FOILing, think MAM. M stands for multiply, add, and multiply. Okay, so if you're not a pro at FOILing or factoring yet, that's okay. I'm just going to say multiply, add, multiply, MAM. Okay, so I'm going to start with my multiplying first. How do I get x squared? Well, hopefully you're saying it's x times x. Now I go to my other multiplying. How do I get 35? Well, I could do 1 times 35. What else? 7 times 5. And I think that's it. Okay, so now I look at my multiplying ones, and I say, when I take these numbers and add them, I have to get a 2. Well, can a 1 and 35 ever make a 2? If you add them, you get 36, and if you subtract, you get 34. So that's out. How about a 7 and a 5? If I add them, I get 12, but if I subtract them, I get 2. Ding, 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 we have a winner. I'm going to go with 7 and 5. Now let's watch the signs. If I want to multiply to a negative 35, let's be clear, I need one to be positive and one to be negative. I need different signs. So my x times x gets me x squared. I need one to be positive and one to be negative to get a negative 35. Now I want to add to a positive 2. So who do you want to be positive? Do you want to say 7 minus 5 gets you 2 or 5 minus 7? Hopefully you want to say 7 minus 5. And there you have it. You have factored a trinomial. Let's try another one. X squared plus 11x plus 24. So again, if you're a factoring pro, you don't need to write ma'am down every time, that's fine. I'm just writing that down for anyone that needs a little extra help. So I'm going to multiply my first term. What times what is x squared? X times x. I'm going to go back to my multiplying here. Now I need a positive, so that tells me either they're both positive or they're both negative. I need the same sign. Now 24 has a lot more choices than our previous question. I could do 1 and 24. Let's see, 2 and 12. 3 and 8. 4 and 6. I have quite a few more choices. But now I just say to myself, okay, they have to be the same sign, keep that in mind, and I need to add to a positive 11. So 1 and 24 can never make 11. 2 and 12 can never make 11. 8 and 3 can make 11, and 6 and 4 can never make 11. So I'm just going to check them all. So I know I've got to use 8 and 3, and I need the same sign. Now do I want to add to a positive 11 or a negative 11? Well, I want a positive, so I'm going to say this is x plus 3 and x plus 8. Now remember, you should never get factoring wrong because you can check them. If you distribute, FOIL, or use the tabular method, we should get the original. So I'm going to FOIL. I would get x squared plus 8x plus 3x plus 24. So that's x squared plus 11x plus 24. Wham bam, it checks. All right, try this one. You've got it. Good luck. Pause it, see what you get. All right, so the notes I made to myself, ma'am, these were my multiples, 2, 11, 1, and 22, and I'm saying the signs have to be the same. And I want to get a negative 13, so I'm going to go minus, minus, and 2 and 11. That would give me 13. 1 and 22 would never work. All right, last one to try on your own there. Good luck. All right, so I said, I know my signs have to be different, so keep that in mind because I'm multiplying to a negative number. And I need to get a 5, so that's out. That's out. That will get me a 5, and I want a negative 5. So the bigger number would have to be negative, x minus 10 and x plus 5. All right, well, you might be saying, well, that's kind of easy, and you're probably right. Can we make it a little harder? Of course. Now, in all the examples we've done, this a value was 1. You didn't have a number sitting here besides the number 1. So in this next section, let's go ahead and say a has to be greater than 1. And make a note, we're going to use the guess and check technique to factor. Now, like it's called guess and check, it takes time. You have to guess and check. And when it fails, you guess again and check again. And when that fails, you guess again and check again. Okay, most people don't get them right on their first time. That's why it's called guess and check. It takes time. Now, we'll start with the first example. 3x squared plus 19x minus 40. I'm still going to start with my ma'am. So let's go ahead and write this down. Even if you think you're a pro at factoring, jot it down. You've got to multiply to 3x squared. So you're no longer x and x. You've got to get a 3 in there. So you can be 3x and 1x. That's really your only option because 3 is a prime number. So that's fairly nice. Now we got to get to 40. And the signs have to be different, say to yourself, because of that negative. So let's list them out. You could go 1 and 40, 2 and 20, 4 and 10, 5 and 8. Now here's the difference, guys. You're not adding to 19. Let me say it again. You are not adding to 19. Even though I put an add there, we're not adding to 19 because this 3 in front throws everything off. So here's what you're going to do. We're going to make our 2 sets of parentheses. Now the first one's nice because our only options were 3 and 1, so we can put those in there right now. Now here's what I need you to do every single time. I need you to put a box around the first two and a box, like piece of a box, around the next two. Alright, don't skip this part, it's important. These are the numbers that have to add up to the 19. And underneath, I want you to put 19x. You have to get a 19x from these pieces. So here's where the guess and check comes in. I'm going to start with, I don't know, 1 and 40. And now you can move them in different spots. I'm going to put my 40 here and my 1 here. Look at my box. This box here makes 40x. Jot it down. This box here makes 3x. Can those ever make a 19, a 40, and a 3? Heck no. So I guessed and I checked and I'm wrong. So before I kill those numbers completely, what I'm going to do is just switch them. I'm going to go a 1 here and a 40 here, and I'm going to guess and check again. This box is now a 1x. Write it down. Get an eraser going here. This box is now 120x. Can those ever add up to the 19x? No. So kill the 1 and 40. That is now completely out. I'm going to switch gears and maybe try a smaller number because 40 was so big. Maybe I'm going to try 5 and 8. So again, this is just the fun part of guess and check. I'm going to try a 5 here and an 8 here. Okay, so let's check the middle numbers. Inside I get a 5, outside I get 24. So 5x and 24. Can that make a 19 somehow? Wait a minute. If I take 24 and I subtract 5, I get 19. I think I might have found a winner. Now we have to make sure the signs work. Because I wanted a negative 40, I need different signs. Are you going to use different signs to get your 19? Well, of course. You want a positive 24 and you want a negative 5. So now just make sure you put the signs on the right place. If I want a positive 24, these two have to multiply to the positive, so my plus sign must go there to get a positive 24x. If I want a negative 5, then the negative must go here to get the negative 5x. And I'm just going to rewrite my factor a little nicer. I'm going to say it's 3x minus 5 and x plus 8. Now remember, you can always slow down and FOIL it out to see if you get the original problem. Let's go ahead and try another one. And like I said, this is the ugly type of factoring. 2x squared minus 15x plus 18. So let's go ma'am again. Okay, I'm going to start with the easy side, the 2x squared. Now I'm calling this easy because there's only one option that multiplies to 2x squared. I know I have to use 2x and x. We love it when there's only one option. Now let's work on our ma'am on the other side. I could use 1 and 18, 2 and 9, 3 times 6. I think that's it. Let's talk about signs. I have to multiply to a positive, which means the signs have to either both be positive or both be negative. They have to be the same. Alright, so let's get her set up. I know I have to go 2x and x, and the next step you should be doing, don't skip it, is drawing the boxes. One to the outers, one to the inners. And underneath that, I'm going to say my outers and inners have to add to negative 15x. Alright, who should we try first? Let's try, I don't know, 2 and 9. And again, it's a guess and a check. I'm going to put my 9 here and my 2 here. And let's see. My inners make 9x. My outers make 4x. Does that ever get me a 15? Well, if I add them, I get 13. If I subtract, I get 5, so that's wrong. So now before I kill those two, let's just switch them. Let's go 2 and 9. Now my inners get me 2x, and my outer is going to get me an 18x. Can that ever make a 15? If I add, I get 20. If I subtract, I get 16. So I know 2 and 9 are out. And again, I would be erasing. My eraser's just not working here. Let's try another pair. Let's go with the 3 and the 6. I'll try a 3 and a 6. So my inners make 3 and my outers make 12. 3x and 12x. Can you get a 15 out of there? Ooh, I think we can. If I put them together, 12 and 3 make 15. Now let's just watch our signs. They need to be the same, so either both need to be positive or both need to be negative. If I want to add to a negative 15, they are both going to be negative. So I would say I get 2x minus 3 and x minus 6. And again, a quick check of foiling or distributive method should check and say I get the original. All right, now I tried to make a really ugly one for you. Those two that we just did were fairly nice because the first term was prime and it only had one option. Look how nasty this one's going to be. I have a 12x squared. Okay, so when I go write my mam, I have to multiply to 12. Well, darn, there's a lot of options. I could use 1 and 12, 2 and 6, or 3 and 4. So I just can't say to myself, okay, the first number has to be blank and blank. There's so many options. So basically, again, it's annoying. You just have to guess and check. My last term, the signs have to be different because of the negative here. And my 15, I could be 1 and 15 or 3 and 5. So it's a little nicer because I only have 2 options, but I have a lot to mess with on the first one. So, like I said, I'm just going to slow down and guess and check. My 2 brackets, my inners and outers, have to add up to an 8x. So, you just pick your poison and start with it and go. I'm going to start with my 3 and 4. 3x and 4x, and I'm going to see where it takes me. And I'm going to try maybe the 3 and the 5. 3 and 5. So if I leave it like that, let's see, my inners are 12x, my outers are 15x. If I add and subtract, I will never get an 8. So now I'm going to switch them and go 5 and 3. Try again. Let's see, my inners are 20x, my outers are 9x. If I add and subtract those, I get a 29 or an 11. That'll never make 8, so I know that's out. And now you just keep playing the game. I'm going to leave the 3 and 4 and try the 1 and 15 before I switch the 3 and the 4. So if I go 1 and 15, my inners make 4x, my outers make 48. That's never going to get me 8. Let's try 15 and 1. What's that going to get me? 6x and 3. That's out. So what that tells me now, guys, is 3 and 4 are completely out. It's not going to happen. So now let's try maybe 2 and 6. And I'm going to have to start fresh because that's way too messy. So I'm going to go 2x and 6x. And what were my numbers? 1 and 15 or 3 and 5? 15 and 3 and 5. And I'm trying to get, so again I just start and rewrite all this. I need an 8x in the middle here. And we did say the signs have to be different, I believe. Yeah, different signs. All right, guess and check. Let's try the 3 and the 5. So I get an 18x and a 10x, and holy smokes, I think I can get an 8 out of that. 18x and 10x. If I positive 18 and negative 10, that definitely gets me an 8x. All right, so I know that these two have to make negative 10, so that's going to be a negative. And these two have to be positive 18, so that's going to be a positive. So I would say my final solution is 2x plus 3 and 6x minus 5. And again, I could FOIL, distribute, just to check and make sure I got the original. So guess and check, not the most efficient. It takes time. You just have to be patient with yourself and slow down. So we talked about factoring completely yesterday when we talked about our conjugate multiplication or difference of two perfect squares. Remember, factor completely means you probably have to factor at least twice. Okay, it's definitely more than once. And we always said start by looking to see if there's a GCF. So now this one's ugly. 18x squared minus 15x minus 18. If you don't pull out the GCF and you try to multiply to 18, you have so many options. So it's much smarter to pull out the GCF. I would say 3 goes into all of those. So I'm going to pull out the 3 and say I get 6x squared minus 5x minus 6. Now, you probably want to be done there, but that word completely is telling you you got to go again. So let's get ready to factor this. Now, one of the most important things is make sure you carry this 3 down. Because remember, in the end, when you multiply, you have to get this original back out. So I'm going to stick my mam in here, multiply, add, multiply, and just list out my options. For my 6x squared, I can use 3x and 2x, or x and 6x. For this one, I'm going to make a note that my signs have to be different. And I can go 3 and 2, or 1 and 6. And then lastly, let's get our inner and outer box in and remind ourselves that we have to make a negative 5 in the end. Negative 5x. All right, let the fun begin. Lots of erasing on this or scratching off and starting fresh. So let's see. I'm just going to randomly, I'm just guessing, I'm going to start with 3 and 2 and see what happens. 3x and 2x. And again, I'm just randomly picking to see what happens. And maybe I'll start with a 1 and a 6. So I'm going to go 1 and 6. Check my inners and outers. So I get a 2x and an 18x. Can those ever make 5, 2 and 18? Not if I add or subtract. So now before I kill it completely, let's just flip them. 6 and 1. So now I get a 12x and a 3x. That can never make 5, so I know those are out. I am not going to use 6 and 1. Let's try 3 and 2. Inside I get 6x and 6x. So if I add, I get 12. If I subtract, I get 0. So that's out. So I'm just going to flip them and go 2 and 3. Inside I get 4x. Outside I get 9x. Oh, wait a minute. That could make a 5. 9 minus 4 is 5. However, I want a negative 5, so I would want a positive 4 and a negative 9. That's going to work for us. So I need the outers to make a negative 9, which means this guy's got to be negative, and the inners to make a positive, which means that one's going to be positive. And I'm going to rewrite this so it's nice and neat. I'm going to have 3 times 3x plus 2 times 2x minus 3. Now I'm going to slow down and just verify that this is true. I'm going to FOIL these first. So I'm going to leave my 3 out and say I get 6x squared minus 9x plus 2x minus 6. I'm going to clean that up and say that's x squared did I multiply wrong? I did multiply wrong. This should be a 4x. Sorry about that. Minus 5x minus 6. And then lastly, I'm going to take this 3 and distribute it and get 18x squared minus 15x minus 18. And that checks because that's what the original problem was. 18x squared minus 18, or 15x minus 18. So we know we've done it right. All right, our last question says, which of the following is the correct factorization for 12x squared minus 23x plus 10? Eliminate the two unintelligent guesses. So this would be, for a multiple choice. What are some things we're looking for? Well, first of all, I'm going to start with my mam. Multiply, add, and multiply, and see what would be intelligent or unintelligent. So I'm going to start with my 12x squared. Do the first terms all make 12x squared? 6 times 3 is 18x squared. To me, that's an unintelligent guess then, because that doesn't even multiply to 12x squared. 4x and 3x is 12x squared, 6x and 2x is 12x squared, 4x and 3x, 12x squared. So I've eliminated one right off the bat. Now I'm going to go to my second multiplying. I need to make a 10, but specifically, I need to make a positive 10. So let's look here. Negative 2 and negative 5, positive 10. Negative 5, negative 2, positive 10. Negative 5, positive 2? That makes a negative 10. So there's another unintelligent guess. So if I were to slow down, these are the two I'm focusing on because these two didn't make any sense. So just some tips for, multiple choice questions. Well, it's going to take a lot of practice and patience tomorrow, but a lot of guess and check. We'll see you tomorrow and we'll get a lot of practice in.